Doug, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
It is another bright, sunny fall day in central Indiana.
Yeah, I love it. I love this time of year, and it's a great time of year to go for a drive, especially when it's a little cooler out.
I'm a big road trip fan, so yeah, I'll probably do that.
So your top recommendation if you're in Indiana, if you're going to drive somewhere this afternoon, where would you go?
How much time you give me?
Got to be home by 8 o'clock.
Can I leave now?
Yep.
I would head toward 135 on 465, follow 135 south all the way into Nashville.
Oh yeah.
Go through Nashville, head down to Bedford, jump on 37, and go as far south on 37 as you can go to get home safely by 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's probably the most beautiful Indiana drive I've taken.
There you go. There's your maybe 1 or 2 tank road trip idea from Keith Tyner.
Depends on what you're driving.
And all recommendations, past performance is no guarantee.
Oh, I haven't shared our disclaimers yet.
I was throwing that disclaimer up for your road trip.
Yeah, it's going to be fine out there. I added you are the adult in the room to the disclaimer today. Don't look around for some other adult in the room because they're not there.
Yeah,
it's you.
Yeah,
it's you.
We believe in you.
Don't hope somebody else is going to rescue you. It's you, whatever that looks like. I constantly and tell my kids that because they're just. It seems even fewer and farther between today than it was even 5 or 10 years ago.
We had parent-teacher conferences last night, and we still have a 5th grader, which is an awesome thing to be almost 50 years old and have a 5th grader.
What age is 5th grade? What does that even mean? I can't remember.
Yeah, see, you're probably 10 or 11, and the greatest thing I asked our teacher, I said, what's the number one thing that you complain about to all your friends about parents today? And she was just spot on with this. She said, I believe that she said it was personal awareness. She wished that kids had personal awareness. And I really didn't know what that meant. So I had to ask, hey, what does that mean? And she said, respect. And I like that. And so here she says, I wish the kids today had respect. So Keith, when you think of Bobby Knight.
Yes.
I believe you went to his basketball camp, if my memory's right.
Twice.
And you think about respect. Did you learn anything about respect from Bobby Knight? Or what did you learn from Bobby Knight? Because he was big on respect.
Well, I was a risk taker, so I broke the rules there. So I could have got thrown out. So that was part of what I did. I found the evening things to be boring. So I heard Mother Bear's pizza was good. So I stayed in the dorm room. Like they would walk up and down and look for people in the dorm room. I stayed in there.
And you're how old at this point? Are you a 5th grader?
16, 17.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you're old enough to know better.
Yeah. So I'm so I'm ordered a Mother Bear's pizza to be delivered while I was supposed to be at a meeting, but that was me back then. And when I did it, I knew my parents could be coming from Evansville to get me, and
risk reward scenario.
I was wanting the pizza. So he like I'm pretty sure one of my first coaches was teaching how to shoot a jump shot was Mike Krzyzewski. Like a young Mike Krzyzewski I just remember him telling you shoot it like you're throwing a dart. And so
that's impressive. So
respect, he had Mike Krzyzewski as one of his gophers. Like there were probably 50 coaches. Like there were, if there weren't thousands at this, there were hundreds of players. I mean, this was intense. So he had the respect of a lot of coaches there. I think for me, I was more intimidated. He demanded respect, and there were some probably 4th or 5th graders. We were sitting on a hill while he was telling us what's going to happen, and these 4th or 5th graders were talking, and he started cussing them out and telling them, if you don't shut the bleepity bleep up, I'm calling your parents. And these little 5th, 6th graders' eyes are this big, and even with that, I'm still skipping and ordering a pizza. I'm like, the risk reward was okay for me at that time. So I wasn't overly enamored by Bob Knight. I remember Jim Cruz was one of his coaches, and I later came to respect Jim Cruz, but Jim Cruz thought he was a big deal. I think he almost ran the camp for Coach Knight at that point in time. So he was one of his former players.
Yeah, well, I've really enjoyed over the last day or so asking people about Bob Knight memories. And he's such an interesting character, but my favorite of them is a good friend of ours. And Bob Knight leaned into this person and basically spoke dreams into him and gave him a career path, a respectable career path. And so regardless of all the, I guess, lack of communication skills that would be respectable today, Bob Knight really did lean in and help some people, and I take a lot of encouragement by that. My dad remembers the Bob Knight show. I guess there was some show.
Oh.
Do you remember that?
I wouldn't watch it,
Okay.
but I remember his buddy was the host.
Yeah, and he says the guy who was the host was just a clean cut, proper guy, would ask Bob Knight great questions. Whatever questions the guy would ask, Bob Knight would give some sarcastic reply every time. But he really was a force here in Indiana. I don't know about outside of Indiana, if you guys have ever heard of him. But inside Indiana, he really did, during those like late 70s, 80s years especially, give us something to cheer about.
I've been fortunate to befriend some of his players, like they're friends of mine, and I don't say that boastfully. I just say I just had friendships, and I'm not really one that is mesmerized by people that have celebrity status. I'm most mesmerized by the heart of people, and the players that I've met and spent time with, they respected the way he respected his players, and he didn't look after them just while there was a benefit to him. He was into them the rest of their lives, I believe, and that's somebody, irregardless of their public persona, that's somebody that I respect.
Yeah, that's a good word. Let's dive into the stock market. The picture's changed a little bit since last week.
A lot can change in a short period of time. Keep the faith.
Yeah, so one of the things Keith and I do is we constantly are taking a look at the major indices like this one, the NASDAQ. And this is my favorite one to follow. Okay.
The NASDAQ.
Yeah,
the NASDAQ
I like the story of the Dow the best. That 30 stocks could capture what goes on in the corporate world globally. And I think that's a pretty fantastic story that 30 stocks can do that. The NASDAQ, there's a ton of stocks in here. I don't know how many, if there's 3,000 or whatever. But I really like the NASDAQ story because these are growth-oriented companies. These are future-oriented. These are the innovators. And these are the types of stocks that could bail America out.
Absolutely. You think about, does the government bail us out, or does the free market really bail us out? And it's not the government. The government has to take from the free market in order to do these bailouts they've done. And I think Jim Ropel, is that his name?
Yeah.
He says that capitalism is the best thing unless you kill the golden goose of capitalism. And so all the eggs from the golden goose go to the government. Like that, any money the government has, it comes from the golden goose of the machine of profitability. So it's a big deal. And these new companies are the ones that are able to create greater profits for the people.
Hey, you just typed in a note there, and it's something that I wanted to talk about. You and I use terminology here that might not be familiar to investors or other people, but this one that you just typed in is a big deal to us. Tell us about what is a follow-through day?
Yeah, hang on here. I thought I was going to add a little something else to this. So each of these arrows right here that I've drawn, I can better draw another one here, but each of these, the question you and I would ask each other, is this the bottom? Right? See where we hit lower lows here. We hit 3 of them since August. We hit one at the 13,000 level, one at the 12,900, and then this one last week at probably the 12,500 level. And any capital that we have of yours that we're wanting to put to work, we will not generally put it to work anticipating the bottom, because there's an old saying that says don't ever catch a falling knife, because the markets can go lower than you think they can. And we would rather put your capital to work when it's finally bottomed out and started moving forward. And I'm not sure who came up with the follow through day idea. I know William O'Neill taught us that. And basically, once you hit the 5th day after a low that it hasn't gone lower, you can start watching for what we call a follow through day. It's saying the buyers are following through their already initiated buying. The reason you know they've started buying is you didn't go lower. Yeah, because you've got a tug of war between buyers and sellers, and they had to start buying or we would just keep going lower. And so once you get to that 5th business day after the low that you haven't had a lower low, we need ideally a high volume, something greater than the day before, and at least a 1% increase in the value of that particular index to get a follow through day. And it happened 3 days ago. And shortly thereafter, we started putting some more capital into the market.
And in that follow through day, we might see it on the NASDAQ. We could see it on the S&P 500 or even the small cap indexes, but it doesn't have to occur in every one of them. Just where we start to see buyers coming in on any of those major indices, that's what we're looking for.
And we really had it back to back. I mean, it did it Wednesday, and then yesterday was another higher volume day. And I think this was the one I was reading, somebody was writing about. Yeah, this one didn't get it Wednesday, I don't think. Let me look here real quick. The NYSE composite index that on Wednesday it was only at 0.56%. So it didn't happen the same day as NASDAQ. And then yesterday it was 2.2%, and it came in with pretty big volume over there. So yeah, the markets are telling us maybe we're going to have a Santa Claus rally, and I think as long as we get confirmation of that, we'd love to have more and more of your capital at work in this. So we're coming at it pretty close to the bottom here.
And out of the bottoms, it seems that technology is leading the way. I know I looked at several different components of the S&P 500. There's 11 different components of the S&P 500, and those could be utilities, those could be healthcare, those could be financials, technology, consumer goods, and really technology has been leading the way, which is nothing new. I mean, we've been living in that world for how long now, and so it's not too surprising when we see technology start to spark, and that's during a time when earnings are coming out and companies may have beat their expectations, but they're announcing their results, or they're announcing their forecast of what they think is going to happen ahead, and the market's been reacting to that, and where some of these tech leaders haven't been rewarded like they have in the past. So I was encouraged to see the tech lead out despite the earnings estimates and revisions.
Yeah, I think that's really optimistic. And what I'd really love to see in a perfect world is those smaller companies starting to get some oomph, because
it's been a long time.
Because the future leaders are probably not going to be the past leaders, and to come from those smaller kind of, if you could look at it as a garden, something's going to show some strength in there. It's going to show some growth, and I would sure love to see that to help not only the economy but new jobs, new possibilities, and maybe new names for all of you to look at in the years ahead.
I don't think we need to highlight this on a chart, but a couple of my notes show commodities boosting up here in the last couple of weeks, and that could be things like precious metals or oil, and by and large, this is driven out of war and out of global uncertainties. And so just remember, when you're looking at a commodity, or when you're hearing an advertisement most of the time to invest in a commodity, commodities like gold, they don't invent anything. They don't create a new level of service. And so what type of event would cause a commodity to go up? Well, it's normally fear and greed. And there could be ties to the dollar and interest rates and all that, but it's most of the time it's going to be fear and greed. And so we prefer to look towards innovation and reward those taking risk and growing things.
I think with that, Doug, the benefit of, let's just say you've got a phone company that's making phones, and But the cost of that phone is going to go up with inflation, which is going to increase that company's profits, right? And so that's going to respond much like the commodities. If you look over here, I ranked the strongest industry groups right now. And I don't know if this is this upgraded weekly or how they do it, but you can see that a lot of these names in the top 10 here are a commodity of some function. So the commodities, they only can go with what the market value of that commodity does. A company that has a product that goes up with inflation also has that creativity and ingenuity that you discussed. So you've got a double barrel possibility with a company versus a commodity. You don't have to store, I mean, you do store a company, but you don't, that storage is just the people. Whereas as a commodity, you got to store it somewhere. You got to protect it somehow. And so there's different things with commodities that, some people, that's the right thing for them, but a lot of times a good company is going to provide maybe a little more bang for your buck.
It's good.
Well, let's look at a couple other indices real quick. And the S&P 500, again, you had the follow through day that brought it right through the 200-day moving average. And I think we probably talked about that last week, that's what we'd like to see as it come back through there. And now it's right on the 50-day moving average. So it gives us kind of a look for optimism at this point compared to where we were just a week ago. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I'm inspired by that. That's great. I love to see the market bounce back like that. I did not anticipate it doing so as robustly as it has.
Yeah, it's exciting. And who knows, you don't really know what tomorrow has in store, but we're looking at these things on your behalf to help you protect what you have. You and I were talking about a video I was watching earlier, and the upside is what most people are thinking about, but the math is that if you protect your capital on the downside, then you can sure have a lot more possibilities on the upside. The math just works against you on the downside. Anything else on the stocks we need to talk about, you think?
I suppose we could.
I wasn't even sharing that.
Let
me go back and share this with you guys. Sorry about that. This is the S&P we were talking about, and the 200-day moving average, and then the 50-day moving average is the red line. And you can see where we're at today. We just this morning crossed over the 50-day, which is a real positive thing.
I suppose we could pop the VIX up there.
Yeah.
While Keith's doing that, I'll just highlight that stocks still have plenty of competition, and I think that's great. Interest rates right now are still paying 5% on money markets, or close to that. And so seeing stocks rise amongst the competition is very encouraging to me. And it's a battle for your investment capital. It basically, I think it means that you don't have to be so binary. You can have combinations, and some will give you peace of mind, while others will give you opportunistic opportunities. And so that's what I'm liking about our current environment. But the VIX, this measures the ups and down movements of the stock market, and as you can see, it's coming down, which is encouraging, and it's coming down below its 200-day and its 50-day.
Yeah, I'd like to just piggyback on what you're saying, Doug, is that when you have your battle for investments out there, and the tug of war for where you put your capital, I'd say that you and I honestly don't have a preconceived idea for how each of you all should have your allocation. We're willing to listen to what you have and honestly just help you get to where you need to be. And it sure is a battle if you've as you're older and you're thinking about things, sometimes maybe having more in those guaranteed things may give you more peace of mind, and there's just not a one size fits all.
Yeah, it's true.
Anything else with the VIX here?
I don't think so.
All right. I think what we had said a few weeks ago was that our research from Mark Minervini was suggesting that it would, in a perfect world, go from this 13 level up to here to create the bottom, and then we would start rallying when it starts dropping back in. It looks pretty prophetic from Minervini to me. All right. Well, I had a topic. We've been talking about the age-related ideas that I was writing about in the anchor, and the one that just hit me today is age 14. I think age 14 was one of the first stages that I heard the words "you're fired," and I think about you're fired or you're cut.
Yeah.
And another word for those things is no. You can't have that. And that's a hard lesson to learn, that I did something wrong. I'm not acceptable. I didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
And what do you think about those ideas? Like, why would those even, why would you guess I'm saying those have financial ideas attached to them?
Well, it's tied to expectations. It's tied to results. It's tied to psychology, or at the end of the day, communication.
Yeah, it is. It's a humbling thing to realize you may not perform well enough, right? Like,
It is.
I can't reproduce, I don't think, in my mind. I have memory of going to the coach's locker room door and see, like, they posted a handwritten cut list back in the day, and if your name is on the list, you're there. If it's not on the list, it's like
Today it's an email.
yeah, and that emotion there's a lot for a 14-year-old boy to take if your name's not on the list. I think I picked that age because I think that was when I got cut from freshman baseball, and so you kind of walk with your head down. But over the years, I've been fired a couple of times, been cut a few times. I didn't make the mark a few times, and I think one of the greatest things about that is the lessons you can learn from those things.
For sure. Yeah.
Because if everything you do is correct, you're not really learning anything.
Well, and I think some of those greatest lessons occur by having this good community around you when you're going through those times, to be able to have somebody remind you, hey, yes, that did happen, but here we are, and let's stay focused. And it helps me to have someone else to call and talk to.
Yeah, absolutely. I talked to a friend of mine that his junior, his basketball coach told the assistant coach to go tell him that he might not want to try out his senior year. And could you imagine what you'd be thinking? Is that you're probably a 17-year-old when the coach says that to you?
Yeah.
And this guy, as a 17-year-old, told the assistant coach, if coach thinks that he's going to cut me, he's going to have to cut me next year because I'm coming out.
Well, and I was in music, and so we were constantly challenging each other for first chair or second chair, and you're basically picking a fight with your friend at that point because you sit next to this person all the time. But I can think about getting cut a few times. I can think about having wins at other times, and one of the great things that adversity teaches you is to look yourself in the mirror and be honest and say, hey, where can I improve? And then improve, and then go do it.
Absolutely. And one of the hardest things about this role that you and I do is I would bet we get fired, what do you think, a couple times a year?
Yeah.
And when you're a 25-year-old, when I first got into business and I hadn't been fired as an adult, you don't get fired by the employer, you get fired by you, all the clients. We're right. Working for you. And the first time that happens, you go home, your voice is a little higher, you're trying not to cry because you put all that effort in. Yeah. And there's no common ground for exactly why it happens from one time to the next, and so it toughens you up, and it creates a learning opportunity for you, because, like, what did I learn from that relationship, and how can I help others from that particular thing? And
the other key piece to this is the respect piece. Like, I've been fired, and when I have somebody call me to fire me, I really appreciate that.
I do too.
I appreciate the guts that they had to say, hey, this is it, because that tells me there was a relationship there. And so just, again, communication and respect goes a long way in winning and in losing.
Yeah, and I only bring this up because I think for young people to learn about rejection, I think that's how you have success. If you don't accept rejection,
Yeah.
If rejection causes you to stumble over, if Mr. Stonks here, one bear market, if he falls over and never comes back, then what's the hope for the future? And really, I think the greatest success is moving forward from a failure.
I know it's helped me a ton.
Yeah, it's not fun. I'm like, pick me, coach. I'm like, no, absolutely not. But I think it's probably one of the greatest things you can help your family members learn about as they're trying to build wealth and financial ideas is you're going to fail on your budget somehow. I don't know, your car's going to break. You're going to fail your newlywed spouse.
Yep.
You're going to have to look them in the face and say, I'm sorry. But like, if you don't ever learn that failure is part of life and you just try to bury your head in the sand, it's going to cost you so much. Probably it's going to cost you your health.
I mean, there's countless business examples of this, success stories of just the amount of Babe Ruth. I mean, there's a lot of stories.
Well, I'm going to shout out to my friend Jeff. When that assistant coach told him, coach doesn't think you should come out. And he told, like, I wouldn't have done, I don't know what I would have done with that. Like, as a 17-year-old, he told him coach is going to have to cut me. He comes in the first day of practice as senior, 6 foot tall, and goes down the court, grabs the ball 2 hands, and just rockets it through the goal, dunks it, just shit. And the coaches are all, who did that? And he's like, it was me.
Yeah,
it was me. Yeah. And
he motivated me.
He ended up starting for the team and getting a Division I full scholarship. And I was like, I just respect the world out of him for that, because you can take rejection, fold up your tent, go home and cry, or you can say, what am I going to learn from this? And the stock market is the most rejecting thing I know. Like, it is not kind. It doesn't care about you. Doesn't even show sympathy if you don't get your way with it. And that's why we're so resilient at looking out for protecting your capital, I think.
That's a great example. I mean, every day it's measured. It's out there. It tells you what it's done, what you've done.
Yeah, and there's no hiding. It's either going to be a slam dunk at the beginning, or you're going to get cut with picking the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah, it's pretty encouraging. I think if you're willing to accept feedback like that, it's one of life's greatest gifts.
I've never thought of it that way. That is the ultimate feedback machine.
It is what
For
it is.
a guy who struggled with feedback, I guess I am more open to feedback than I realize.
You can't do what we do and not be willing to take honest feedback. Like, if we get fired, we can go in the corner over there in the fetal position, or we can stand back up and say, yeah, I didn't
know, now you know. I think that's a Biggie Smalls song for all you Gen Xers out there.
Well, we are excited. We are very hopeful that this thing has turned the corner. We're hopeful that you're patient enough to ride through these things, and that we're here for you.
Yeah, it's such a luxury. It's cool to be an investor, to be able to even have money to put to work. It's amazing. Like, we all take that for granted, because you look globally, and who has the time to be concerned about the stock market? I mean, it is an awesome thing that we get to be a part of every day.
It's a gift. Yeah, it's a gift to live in America, to have air conditioning, to have running water, to have food. It's unbelievable. Even if you didn't have any stocks, it's unbelievable what we have here.
Heck yeah.
Doug, you make the most out of this weekend. You have a wonderful time first part of the week with your bride. And if you all need anything, we're here to serve you.
Call Keith.
I'll be here.
Bye.